I'm Jim McClure. The latest casualty numbers are hard for any American to hear.
Now, this isn't the report card mailed home to students. This is something
real easy. All you need is 750 degrees of temperature, about 400 pounds of pressure, 26 miles of steam tunnels.
Among these National Guard's guardsmen are ones who are expected to deploy in the next month.
Something new in the wild blue. Welcome to arguably the busiest intersection in Anchorage. What do you do when you can't make ends meet?
A city the size of Anchorage can have problems as towering as a skyscraper, as wide-reaching as a mountain range.
Laura, all the details, all the pages. There's never been a budget like this. Troubled waters indeed. The issue has been brewing for 3 years since students first came to President Hamilton with the idea that maybe it wasn't all that fair.
Lots of colors, lots of power, but most of all the need for lots of safety.
Oh, those Marines went over as boys and came back as men, and they did it together.
Anchorage police told us this afternoon that at least one incident is reported per week according to their averages. We talked to a sex abuse expert about how one should react, and for every situation the advice is pretty much the same.
More importantly, you want to limit your own contact from the situation. And so,
in other words, someone who does this sort of thing is looking for a reaction and wants to kind of relish the thought later when they think about it. So the main thing is to just distance yourself, not react at all. Some good news from Anchorage police. They say that for every indecent exposure case that gets reported, by the time 5 are reported, the original person is found. So 1 in 5 are apprehended. The best thing to do is if you see or hear of anything, let the police know, and they'll get their man or woman sooner or later.
Marines are constantly training, but this one is the tip of the iceberg.
Once you get in the water, what's the safest way to come out? The way you went in.
And what a way to go in with a full backpack. And you don't get out until you push the backpack out and recite your name and social security number.
539 2755.
Captain David McElliott is the company commander of the Elmendorf-based Marines.
They build it up that it's going to be really, really cold, but when you get in there, you find out it's not that bad. Something worse than anything else you'll do in the Marine Corps.
Name and social. Staff Sergeant Cody W. Riggs. 2823.
And in case you were wondering just how thick is that hole they were jumping into, well, here's the ice. 14 inches worth, top to bottom.
My daddy taught me not to get in the water when it was cold.
Who's your daddy now? Many of these Marines will be delivering toys to hundreds of kids in Bush, Alaska next week.
They go up and down the rivers, the Kuskokwim and the Yukon rivers. They a lot of open holes and everything, and we've had some close calls in the past.
Navy hospital corpsmen like Aaron Clifford are close to Marines in combat and in training.
Got to be prepared for it, and especially when it's cold and you got ice, you want to make sure that you don't fall into harm's way, and if you do, make sure that you keep your head on you and get warm and get dry as soon as possible.
Get in the day.
Running to get warm isn't an order they need to hear twice.
Damn.
They're not retreating, just attacking in a different direction. Jim McClure for the Pentagon Channel.
Laura, the issue is one that's bound to be controversial. It pits the rights of Alaskans who may have helped build this state against a sense of fairness and budgetary good sense.
On campus at the University of Alaska Anchorage and its sister colleges, the issue is one of seniors who enrich the student body with experience and budget numbers that indicate free senior tuition could give administrators gray hair.
When we first began this program, tuition was $20 a credit hour. Okay, that has gone up almost 600%.
And as University System President Mark Hamilton reports his proposal to have seniors over age 60 pay a share of their tuition to attend class, other numbers are adding up. The number of petitions to keep the tuition waiver in place, that is.
5,413 signatures and counting.
And along with the petitioning, and the testifying, and the protesting, the signs of the times are that a coalition of student leaders from across the state are for keeping the waiver.
when in a history class and you're going through traditional textbook-oriented stuff. They can give you a line in perspective because they've lived some of it.
Senior art student Jimmy Tompkins says the experience in the classroom becomes a two-way street for his fellow student painters.
I think we tend to inspire one another. I think anytime you're with fellow artists or people of like mind, you tend to inspire one another.
As for Hamilton, he says his inspiration for ending the tuition waiver came from students who complained 3 years ago that it wasn't fair to all on campus.
You know, I looked hard at that and said, you know, by golly, they're right. My typical student's a 27-year-old woman who's working 40 hours a week, and she doesn't get a waiver.
The final decision of the University Board of Regents in a matter of experience and money comes tomorrow.
And the Board of Regents have another controversial issue to decide: whether or not to raise state tuition 10% for a fourth straight year. Another suicide bomb has rocked Baghdad today, leaving at least 4 dead. Violence has surged in recent days as thousands take to the streets to demand a rerun of the historic elections held in mid-December. Susan Roberts is in Washington with the latest. Militants on Wednesday released a video of a French engineer kidnapped in Iraq 3 weeks ago and denounced the illegal French presence in the country. The video aired on Al Jazeera TV yesterday, demanding withdrawal of French troops from the country. France opposed the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq and has not sent any soldiers there, but private contractors have gone into the region. The French government says it's working for the man's release. Israel's deputy defense minister says a Palestinian suicide bombing that killed 4 people today was carried out by Islamic Jihad. The blast occurred near an Israeli military checkpoint set up today after a bomb warning. Israel says it prevented a heavier catastrophe earlier this week. The radical group rejected an appeal by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to halt attacks on Israel. In Northern California, it's rain making trouble, and more is on the way. Rivers in the region are at their highest levels in 7 years, causing power outages and forcing residents in some areas to evacuate due to flooding. At least 1 person was killed in a mudslide due to the downpours. Forecasters say more rain is expected to drench the area tomorrow and throughout the New Year weekend. Well, SkyTracker weather meteorologist Angela Huddy joins me now for another look at today's weather. How's it looking, Angela? A little scary on the West Coast, isn't it?
Yeah, still wet down in here for the day tomorrow.
Okay, good. Thanks, Angela. Looking forward to it. Up next, if you're up for a holiday road trip, why not head up north to the interior?
The solitary figure running on the old Seward Highway is in Alaska by choice. He's a mountain warfare specialist, but every day, Master Sergeant Mike Williams says he and his Diamond Mall staff face a different type of uphill battle. It's fought by phone, it's waged by photograph, and the opponent seems eager to tell recruiters they shouldn't be recruiting for this global war on terror.
Recruiters need to spread the word. We need, there's a lot of young people out there that would benefit tremendously by serving in one of the branches of the armed forces.
But it was widely reported here in Alaska that high school age students could opt off the same phone lists that colleges use if they wanted to avoid a call from your friendly neighborhood recruiter. Let's be upfront that I answered that call from the Marines in high school.
There's a saying, once a Marine, always a Marine. And I should disclose that as part of the story, but news is telling the side of the story you don't always hear.
Basically, bad news travels really fast, good news rarely travels.
Williams says few know that the few and the proud consists of 13 support jobs for every Marine in combat, and support roles are much less risky.
That's what that young Marine is going to train to do, and yes, he will be stationed, or she could be stationed in Iraq, but they're going to be on a base that's more secure than Anchorage, Alaska.
But Anchorage Marines do go to combat in Iraq, and they do die.
And it's tough, right here in Anchorage, Alaska. I personally greeted all the returning Marines from Iraq. And I personally have recruited for most every one of the young Marines that came back.
Including those who didn't come back. Recruits like this officer candidate from UAA have eyes wide open.
If I'm going to die, I want to die fighting for something.
You don't join the Marine Corps if you're looking for an easy ride.
The same can be said of running with the memory of those you recruit.
And they faced combat. And when I enlisted them, I was aware of that, and I was happy to see every one of those Marines return, and I'm obviously very saddened by the tragedy of the 2 Marines that did not return. But this is, it's our business. We keep our country free.
It can be a lonely burden few know, yet one he's proud to bear. Jim McClure, CBS 11 News.